Most men spend their lives waiting for a finish line that never arrives. The day the project ships, the money is enough. The relationship finally calms down. David Deida wrote this book in 1997 for the man who has figured out the deeper pattern. The waiting itself is the problem. Across 51 short chapters, Deida lays out a working manual for purpose, intimacy, and presence aimed at men who want their lives to feel like they belong to them. The frame is direct, sometimes uncomfortable, and built to be read at the edge. Chapter 1. Stop hoping for a completion of anything in life. Deida opens with the most common male delusion, the belief that one day the work will be done. The kids will be grown, the business will be sold, the right partner will arrive, and then the real life can begin. He says it never ends, and the man who waits for completion lives as a spectator of his own existence. The cost is the slow erosion of the man's clarity, because each delayed move teaches him that his purpose is negotiable. The instruction is to stop hoping for a clean stopping point and to start living from the assumption that this, right now, is the life. Every moment waited is a moment wasted. Whatever the next move is, make it today, because the conditions that would make it easier are not coming. The man who acts from inside the unfinished mess gets a life. The man who waits for the mess to clear first never starts. Chapter 2. Live with an open heart. Even if it hurts, the natural response to pain is to close, to pull the chest in, drop the shoulders, hold the breath. Deida says that posture is the death of a man's presence. His concrete instruction is physical. Stand up straight, breathe into the belly, open the chest, even when something has just gone wrong. The open heart is not a feeling that arrives after the pain leaves. It is a practice held inside the pain. A man who can stay open while being hurt is a man whose partner, his children, and his colleagues can actually feel. A man who closes the second life gets hard becomes a stranger in his own house, and the people around him learn to stop reaching for him. Deida treats this as the precondition for everything else in the book. Without an open heart, the purpose work hardens into ambition, and the intimacy work hardens into performance. The chest stays open, or nothing works. Chapter 3. Live as if your father were dead. This is one of the most direct exercises in the book. Deida asks the reader to imagine that his father has died, or to remember when he did, and to ask honestly whether any part of him feels relief at no longer having to live up to expectations or absorb criticism. The exercise is not about the actual father. It is about the unfinished negotiation a grown man still runs in his head every day. As long as a man's choices are filtered through what Dad would approve of, the choices are not really his. They are votes in an old election he has not let himself leave. The practice is to act from his own ground, to love the father if he is loved, but to stop letting the inherited script run the show. Deida is careful that this is not about cutting the father off. It is about freeing the son from a permission he never needed to ask for. The freedom that opens up on the other side is the freedom to actually choose his life. Chapter 4. Know your real edge and don't fake it. A man's edge is the honest line between what he can already do and what genuinely frightens him. Deida asks, if you were fearless, would you live any differently The answer reveals the gap. The trap is the fake edge, the man who tells himself and everyone around him that he is pushing hard, when he is actually camping safely inside familiar territory. Fake edges feel productive and produce nothing. Real edges are quiet, scary, and specific. They show up as the call he keeps putting off, the conversation he keeps avoiding, the move he knows he should make and keeps not making. A fearful man who knows he is fearful is far more trustable than a fearful man who is not aware of his fear, because the first man can be worked with and the second man is going to surprise everyone at the worst possible time. The work begins with naming the real edge out loud and refusing to pretend the fake one is the same thing. Chapter 5. Always hold to your deepest realization. When a man has touched a deeper layer of himself, in meditation, in love, in a moment of clarity under pressure, the temptation is to drop back down to a shallow level once the moment passes. Deida says, do not drop. The deepest level a man has actually reached is the level he is now responsible for living from. He writes, make your life an ongoing process of being who you are at your deepest, most easeful levels of being. Most men get a glimpse of who they could be, taste it for a day or a week, and then quietly retreat to the familiar self because the deeper self asks more of them. Deida says the retreat is itself the betrayal. The realization, once seen, becomes the new floor. The discipline is to live day by day at the depth already known. Chapter 6. Never change your mind just to please a woman. Deida draws a hard line between two things that look identical from outside, changing course because new information arrived and changing course to diffuse a partner's mood. The first is intelligence. The second is appeasement, and it teaches her that the man's word cannot be leaned on. She can argue him out of anything if he caves to discomfort. Over time, she stops trusting his direction, and the relationship loses the masculine ground she was leaning against. The practice is to hear her fully, let her change his thinking on merit, but never to reverse course just to make the room quiet again. Deida warns that the small caves compound. A man who folds on 100 tiny decisions has trained his partner to expect him to fold on the one that actually matters. Chapter 7. Your purpose must come before your relationship. The hierarchy Deida insists on is purpose first, then relationship. A man who organizes his life around the woman ends up with a hollow center, and the woman feels it. He gives a practical script. The man tells his partner, I love you, but I cannot deny my heart's purpose. I will give you 30 minutes of absolute attention and total presence, but then I must return to my mission. The 30 minutes are real and undivided. The mission is also real. The relationship works because both have weight, not because one absorbs the other. A man who pretends his purpose is secondary to keep her happy slowly resents her, and the partner who is told she comes first when she does not eventually sees through the performance. The honest hierarchy lets both of them stop pretending. He gets to do the work. She gets the full presence of a man who's not lying about why he is in the room. Chapter 8. Lean just beyond your edge. This is the engine of the whole book. Deida says, in any given moment, a man's growth is optimized if he leans just beyond his edge, his capacity, his fear. Too far past the edge is collapse. The man overreaches, breaks something, and quits. Too far behind the edge is stagnation. The man tells himself he is being patient when he is being safe. The narrow target is just past the line every day in whatever the next real thing is. Growth compounds on that band and nowhere else. The instruction is also compassionate. By leaning just beyond his fear, the man challenges his limits without violence to himself. Deida is not asking for grand heroics. He is asking for a one honest step into the discomfort the man has been avoiding. One step a day, over a year, is a different person. The discipline is in the smallness of the step and the daily consistency of taking it. Bigger steps get attention. The just past the edge step builds the actual man. Chapter 9. Do it for love. Whatever the work is, the business, the writing, the parenting, the test, is whether love is the motive. Deida writes that the way a man penetrates the world should be the same way he penetrates his woman, not merely for personal gain or pleasure, but to magnify love, openness, and depth. The man who builds his career out of fear of failure builds a career that hollows him. The man who builds out of love for what he is making builds something that holds. The same applies inside the bedroom. Sex driven by anxiety about performance is consumption. Sex driven by love is communion. Deida treats both contexts as one practice. Whatever the man is doing, the question to keep asking is whether love is in the room. If it is not, the activity will produce results that feel empty even when they look successful from outside, and the man will end up wondering why the winds do not feed him. Chapter 10. Enjoy your friend's criticism. Deida prescribes a weekly meeting with a small group of close male friends who know the man's mission. Each man names what he is actually doing and what genuinely scares him. The friends then assign concrete behavioral challenges, real actions that cut through whatever mediocrity is showing. The point is that men sand each other's edges in a way a partner cannot, because a partner is invested in the man's comfort. Trusted friends are invested in his growth. The criticism is not punishment, it is fuel. Deida is clear that the brotherhood has to have teeth. A group of friends who only affirm each other is a comfort club, not a growth practice. The men have to be willing to call each other on the avoidances and the patterns the man cannot see in himself, and then to assign the corrective action and check on it next week. Chapter 11. If you don't know your purpose, discover it now. If purpose is not yet visible, Deida gives a specific exercise. Sit motionless in a designated space, no phone, no book, no entertainment, until the only mission that becomes obvious is something like standing up to use the bathroom. Stay open without filling the time. The point is to strip away the noise that hides the real signal. He writes, without a conscious life purpose, a man is totally lost, drifting, adapting to events rather than creating events. Deida is realistic. The answer rarely arrives clean on the first try. What comes up is often a smaller mission, the next thing to do, rather than a lifetime arc. Mission reveals itself in layers, and a man working honestly on the current layer is in the right place. The wrong move is to refuse to act until the cosmic mission shows up. The right move is to do the next real thing all the way and let the next layer surface from there. Chapter 12. Be willing to change everything in your life. When purpose becomes clear, every part of the life has to be evaluated against it. The diet, the career, the friends, the city, the relationship. Coherence is the goal. A purpose that requires early mornings and a life built around late nights cannot both survive. Most men want the clarity of purpose without the cost of rearranging everything around it. Deida says the rearrangement is the price, and refusing to pay it means the purpose was never really chosen, only admired. A friendship that is not aligned with the mission has to be honestly named. A job that funds a life the mission is now incompatible with is no longer a neutral source of income. It is a daily contradiction. The man who is unwilling to look at any of it will keep producing the same drift year after year. Chapter 13. Don't use your family as an excuse. A man should be a full participant in caring for children and the household, but if he abandons his deepest purpose to do so, in the end, everyone suffers. Family is not a hiding place from the mission, and the partner and the children both feel the difference between a man who is present because he chose to be, and a man who is present because he gave up. The first is a gift. The second slowly poisons the room. No matter how much the man tells himself, he is sacrificing for the people he loves. Deida is not asking the man to be absent. He is asking the man to stop using the family as the official reason he never built the thing he was supposed to build. Children who grow up with a father who quietly killed his own purpose for them inherit the unspoken bill. The father who lives his mission and includes the family in it gives them a working model of an alive adult. The father who abandons his mission for them gives them guilt. Chapter 14. Don't get lost in tasks and duties. Deida names the trap do mode, the masculine obsession with crossing items off a list as if the list were the life. He says do mode is one of the biggest strengths and the biggest weaknesses of masculine energy. The list will never equal love, freedom, or consciousness, because the list is infinite. New items appear faster than old ones get crossed off, and the man who measures himself by the list will always be behind, no matter how hard he works. His prescription is to interrupt the day with deliberate refreshers, a contemplation of death, a moment of profound love, a recognition of the mystery underneath everything, anything that reminds the man the task is not the point. The breaks are not laziness. They are the corrective for a mind that has confused doing with being. A man who never lifts his head from the list eventually forgets why he started the list in the first place, and the work, even when it succeeds, stops feeling like his. Chapter 15. Stop hoping for your woman to get easier. He writes that a woman often seems to test her man's capacity to remain unperturbed in his truth and purpose. The temptation is to read her difficulty as an obstacle to be removed, after which the real relationship can begin. Deida reframes it. Her difficulty is not in the way of the relationship, it is the relationship. The test never ends because the test is how she feels the man's ground. The most loving women, he says, are the women who will test the man the most, because anything less than the man's full presence she will not settle for. A man who stops hoping she will get easier stops resenting her and starts meeting her. The reframe is small in words and enormous in effect because it converts the most exhausting feature of the relationship from a problem into the actual practice. The difficulty is no longer evidence of the wrong partner. It is evidence of a partner who is asking him to show up at full strength. Chapter 16. Women are not liars. When a woman says one thing and clearly feels another, the man's instinct is to call her on the contradiction. Deida says she is not lying. She is expressing a feeling layer the man is failing to read. The words are the surface. The feeling is the message. The job is to learn the language, not to litigate the words against each other. A man who keeps trying to win the verbal argument keeps losing the actual relationship because the verbal argument was never the thing. Deida is asking for a shift in attention. Stop tracking what she said and start tracking what she is feeling underneath what she said. When the feeling is met, the words usually take care of themselves. When the feeling is missed, no amount of logical correctness will close the gap. The conversation will go in circles because the conversation was never about the topic in the first place. It was about whether the man could feel her. Chapter 17. Praise her. Deida is concrete here. Praise 5 to 10 genuine, specific things about her every day, not generic compliments. Real ones, the kind that show she has been seen. The masculine grows by challenge, the feminine grows by praise, and a man who has stopped praising his partner has not stopped loving her, he has stopped feeding what she lives on. Deida is clear that the praise has to be specific to land. Telling her she looks nice is noise. Telling her exactly what about her this morning struck him is signal. The discipline is in the specificity because specificity proves attention, and attention is what she is actually asking for when she asks why he never compliments her anymore. The praise practice is also a kind of training for the man's own eyes because the act of finding 5 real things to name forces him to look at his partner with care every day instead of letting her become the wallpaper of his life. Chapter 18. Tolerating her leads to resenting her. When a man quietly puts up with a behavior he secretly hates, the resentment compounds in the background until it poisons everything else in the relationship. Deida says, do not endure, engage. Whatever is bothering him should be named in the moment, with directness and without cruelty. The bargain of tolerating now to keep the peace always costs more later than addressing it would have cost in the first place. The cost lands in the man's body first as low-grade irritation, then as withdrawal, then as contempt, and by the time it is visible to the partner, the damage is years deep. Tolerating is not love. Tolerating is the slow accumulation of an unsent bill. The honest move is the one that keeps the relationship clean enough to actually live in. Chapter 19. Don't analyze your woman. Treating a partner like a problem to diagnose pushes her away every time. She is not a malfunctioning machine. She is a weather system. And the right response to weather is not analysis. It is presence. The man who tries to explain his partner to herself loses her in the room, even if his explanation is technically correct. Deida warns that the diagnostic move is especially seductive for thoughtful men, the ones who pride themselves on being insightful because they mistake their insight for connection. It is not. Insight handed to her when she did not ask for it is condescension wearing the costume of help. She wanted to be felt, and instead, she got a lecture about her psychology. The discipline is to put the analyst down when entering the room with her, and to bring presence in its place, even when the analyst's voice has a brilliant theory to offer. Chapter 20. Don't it suggest that a woman fix her own emotional problem? When she is in an emotional storm, telling her to manage it on her own is abandonment dressed up as empowerment. Deida says the man's job is to stay with the intensity, to be the steady presence, not to redirect her back into the storm with a self-help instruction. The strength is in the staying. Sending her off to meditate, journal, or breathe through it, when what she needed was him in the room, is a move the man can rationalize as respect for her autonomy, but she will feel it as the door closing. Deida is not against her doing inner work. He is against the man using her inner work as an escape hatch from being present. The two are different. The first is hers to choose on her own time. The second is the man avoiding the discomfort of holding her by handing her a worksheet. Chapter 21. Stay with her intensity. To a point. A man should meet a woman's emotional intensity with full presence rather than retreating into another room or a colder face. But the meeting has a limit. If the intensity has crossed into abuse, the man does not absorb it as practice. He names the line and steps back. Presence is not a punching bag. Deida is making a careful distinction, and he is making it on purpose because the previous chapters could be misread as a license for the partner to be cruel and for the man to call it strength to keep taking it. That is not the teaching. The teaching is that her storms are normal, and his job is to remain present inside them. Real abuse is a different thing entirely, and a man who confuses the two ends up either abandoning a partner who needed him during a hard mood or staying in a situation that is actively destroying him. The skill is in knowing which is which. Chapter 22. Don't force the feminine to make decisions. Asking a feminine partner to make every logistical call drains her. Deida offers a script the man can use to hold direction without overriding her. I like this option, but what is most important to me is that you are happy. The man holds the direction. The space is still hers to feel into. The decision lands without her having to bear the weight of choosing alone. The mistake men make in the name of equality is to default every choice to whatever you want, which sounds generous and actually leaves the partner exhausted, because she now has to do the emotional work of choosing on top of everything else. Deida is not advocating for the man to dictate. He is advocating for the man to lead gently, while making clear that her feeling about the outcome is what he cares about most. The combination of direction and care is the thing she was actually asking for when she asked for input. Chapter 23. Your attraction to the feminine is inevitable. A woman walks by, and a current runs through them. Deida says, stop being surprised and stop pretending it is not happening. The next time a woman sends a thrill through the body, the practice is to relax into the thrill rather than to press it or chase it. The energy is information. What the man does with the information is the question. Suppression treats the attraction as a problem to be hidden. Acting on it treats the attraction as a command to be obeyed. Deida proposes a third path. Feel the pull, name it inside, and let it pass through without it owning the next move. The discipline is in the relaxing. A man who can feel a strong attraction without panicking and without acting is a man who has actually become the owner of his own desire, instead of being run by it from underneath. Chapter 24. Choose a woman who is your complementary opposite. A very masculine man is most fulfilled with a very feminine woman. A more balanced man is most fulfilled with a more balanced partner. Energetic sameness flattens the polarity that creates desire in the first place. Deida writes, "If you want real passion, you need a ravisher and a ravishee. Otherwise, you just have two buddies who rub genitals." The match has to honor the energetic difference, not erase it. He is clear that essence is not the same as gender role and not the same as personality. It is a deeper energetic shape, and most people have a definite one. Two people whose essences are similar can be good friends and good partners in many ways. But the erotic charge between them will keep going flat, no matter how good the rest of the partnership is. The man who is honest about his own essence and chooses accordingly saves both himself and his partner the slow grind of a relationship the polarity will never support. Chapter 25. Know what is important in your woman. A man choosing a partner often grades her on her resume, her intellect, her income. Deida says those are not the variables that will determine whether the relationship can carry weight. The real variables are her capacity for love, her radiance, the way she shows up in intimacy. A brilliant career and a closed heart will not feed the man over time. He is not saying intellect or accomplishment do not matter. He is saying they are secondary signals, and most men weigh them as primary because they are easy to measure. The harder thing to assess, and the one that actually predicts the relationship, is whether she is genuinely able to love. The man who chooses well by the second criterion ends up with a partner who can meet him for decades. The man who chooses well by the first criterion ends up with an impressive resume across the dinner table from him while the room slowly cools. Chapter 26. You will often want more than one woman. Deida acknowledges, without endorsing it, the simple reality that the desire arises in most men, and pretending it does not is its own form of weakness. The honest response is to recognize the data about the masculine search for release, to be conscious of it, and to choose what to do with it from awareness, rather than from suppression or denial. He is not endorsing acting on the desire, and he is not condemning the desire itself. He is asking the man to stop being shocked by his own biology and to stop running an internal performance of being above it. The man who can sit with the desire honestly, see it for what it is, and then make a clean choice about his actual life is a man with integrity. The man who pretends he never feels the pull is the man who is most likely to be blindsided by it later. Chapter 27. Young women offer you a special energy. He distinguishes the bright, untested energy of a young woman from the deeper presence a more mature woman carries, and he warns against confusing one for the other in commitment. Each has its place. Mistaking the first for the second is one of the more common failures of a man's middle decades. The young woman's energy is real. It is not a fraud, but it is also not the same thing as the depth the partner builds over a decade of being met. Deida is asking the man to be clear about what he is actually responding to. If the pull is youth itself, the man is dealing with a separate question from whether the person can be a long-term partner. Men who collapse the two end up rebuilding the same relationship every 5 years with a younger version of the same template and wondering why the depth they wanted never quite arrives. Chapter 28. Each woman has a temperature that can heal or irritate you. Deida uses the metaphor of energetic temperature. Some women calm a man's nervous system. Some agitate it. The right match depends on the man's own temperature and what he actually needs to be steady. A man chronically irritated by his partner may not have the wrong partner in moral terms. He may have the wrong energetic match, and the difference matters. Deida is not asking the man to grade his partner on a chart. He is asking him to be honest about how he feels in her presence over time. If a man's body is consistently more relaxed and more alive around her, the match is working. If his body is consistently tense and his attention is consistently fragmented, the match is not working, and no amount of communication will fix what was an energetic mismatch from the start. Chapter 29. Choose a woman who chooses you. Wanting a partner who is ambivalent about you is a setup for endless proving. The man who chases a woman who has not actually chosen him spends his life trying to convert her, and the conversion never finishes. The right partner is one who has already decided the energy he was spending on proving is now free for the mission. Deida is direct about why this matters. A man with a chosen partner has a stable platform from which to live his purpose. A man with an unchosen partner has a permanent distraction. The unchosen partner can be charming, beautiful, brilliant, and still wrong for the man, because every day she remains unconvinced is a day his attention leaks toward winning her. The fix is to stop chasing ambivalence and to receive the woman who is already there, even if she is less spectacular than the one he was trying to convert. Chapter 30. What she wants is not what she says. A request for a logical thing is often a request for a feeling. She asks where the relationship is going because she wants presence in the room, not a calendar entry. The man who answers the literal question and not the feeling question keeps losing arguments he did not know he was in. Deida is asking for translation. Underneath the surface request, listen for the actual ask. The actual ask is almost always emotional and almost always about whether the man is fully there. Once the man answers the real question, the surface question often dissolves on its own because it was a proxy. He warns that this does not mean dismiss the literal request. It means do not stop at it. The literal request gets answered, and the deeper request gets met, and the relationship works because both layers were heard instead of just the loud one. Chapter 31. Her complaint is content-free. Deida is blunt. Do not believe the literal content of a woman's complaint Like a baby's cries, a woman's complaints are warning bells and indications of a mood. Argue the content and the man loses every time because he is fighting the wrong fight. Address the mood, give her presence, and the complaint usually dissolves on its own. The reason is the same as the previous chapter. The complaint is the surface. The mood is the message. A man who keeps trying to win on the content keeps proving over and over his inability to read the mood. Deida is not asking the man to dismiss what she says. He is asking the man to feel where she actually is and to respond to that, instead of getting trapped litigating the words. The relationship runs on feeling, not on argument, and the man who insists on running it on argument keeps losing battles he does not even know he is in. Chapter 32. She doesn't really want to be number one. She does not actually want to be the man's entire life, because then he becomes a man with no center, and she has nothing to lean against. What she wants is to be cherished by a man who is also held by something larger than her. The hierarchy is the thing that lets her relax. Deida is overturning a piece of romantic conventional wisdom on purpose. The cultural script says she wants to be the most important thing in his life. The lived reality in his frame is that being the most important thing is unbearable, because it means she now has to be the center of a man who has no center of his own. The position is suffocating, and over time she will start to resist it, often without being able to explain why. The man who keeps his purpose primary and cherishes her fully inside that frame gives her exactly what she actually wanted. Chapter 33. Your excellent track record is meaningless to her. She is not grading the man on his accomplishments. She is feeling the man in the room right now. Yesterday's win is invisible to today's mood. Deida is not saying achievement does not matter. He is saying achievement does not substitute for presence. The man who keeps pointing at his record while his partner asked him to show up tonight is missing the actual request. He warns that this gap can be hidden for years because the achievements are real, and the man can keep using them as defense in any moment of relational tension. The partner stops being able to articulate what is missing because the man keeps pointing at the trophies. What is missing is him now, in the room, without the resume in his hand. The trophies do not feed her. The man does. Chapter 34. She wants to relax in the demonstration of your direction. The feminine releases into a man who knows where he is going. The release is what she wants. Direction is the price. A man with no direction can be sweet, can be loving, can be funny, but he cannot give her the thing she is actually asking for, which is the felt sense that someone is holding the wheel. Deida is careful that direction is not control. The man is not deciding for her. He is holding a clear sense of his own course. And from inside that clarity, she gets to relax. A man without that internal clarity feels, to her body, like an unsteady floor. She might love him, she might be loyal to him, and she still cannot release, because release requires solid ground underneath. The direction is the ground. Without it, the relationship works on willpower instead of on trust, and willpower runs out. Chapter 30. You are always searching for freedom. Deida says the basic masculine motivation is release from constraint. the experience of the freedom on the other side. Money, sex, status, achievement, all of them are attempts at the same underlying hunger. The man who sees this clearly stops being surprised by his own appetites and starts asking what real freedom would actually look like. The next move in Deida's frame is to stop chasing surrogates for freedom and to face the actual question. Most of what men spend their lives accumulating is a substitute for the freedom they have not directly pursued. A bigger house is a small freedom inside a still constrained life. Real freedom is internal, and it is available without the accumulation. But most men never get there because the surrogates are so close at hand. Naming the hunger correctly is the first move toward feeding it with something that actually fills it. Chapter 36. Own your darkest desires. Suppressed desires run a man from underneath. Acknowledging the desire is not the same as acting on it, but pretending the desire is not there is what gives it power. The integration is the practice. The man who can name what is pulling on him without flinching is the man who can choose what to do with it. Deida is asking for honesty, not indulgence. The desire that is consciously seen becomes information the man can work with. The desire that is denied becomes a force that controls the man from the basement. He uses the word darkest on purpose because the practice has to include the parts of the man he most wants to disown. Whatever those parts are, they do not go away when ignored. They only get more powerful and more capable of surprising him at the worst possible moment. Chapter 37. She wants the killer in you. Deida's framing is sharp. Although a woman does not want her man to be a killer, she is turned on by his capacity to kill and turned off by the lack of that capacity. The killer is not literal violence. It is the integrated capacity to act decisively and to protect. A man who has buried that capacity to seem safe feels safe to his partner and not attractive to her, which is its own kind of betrayal. He is asking the man to integrate the harder edge rather than amputate it. The fully domesticated man, the one who has filed off every sharp surface in himself in the name of being a good partner, has also filed off the thing she was actually attracted to. The work is to keep the edge and to choose consciously never to use it on her. The edge is for the world. The tenderness is for her. Both have to be alive. Chapter 38. She needs your consciousness to match her energy. When she is in a wild mood, a small man cannot meet her. If a man is turned off by her anger, she will return to anger until he can hold it without flinching, until he can take her anger and convert it into passion. The capacity to meet her at full intensity without breaking and without controlling is what she is actually testing for. Deida frames this as a consciousness match, not a personality match. The man's awareness has to be at least as large as her felt energy in the room. When it is not, she will keep escalating, often unconsciously, looking for the wall that finally holds. When the wall is there, she can finally stop testing and settle. When it is not, she will keep pushing, because her body knows there is nothing solid yet to lean against. Chapter 39. The feminine is abundant. Beauty is everywhere, in every direction, in every age. Data says the moment a man sees this, the scarcity chasing of one woman stops being a desperate game. The energy that was being spent on grasping is now available for living. The shift is from hunting to receiving. He is making a practical point inside the spiritual one. A man who has internalized scarcity around the feminine treats every interaction as a transaction he might lose. A man who has internalized abundance moves through the same world relaxed, because nothing is at stake in any one encounter. The relaxation is what makes him available, and the availability is part of what made him attractive in the first place. The abundance frame is not a trick to be more successful with women. It is the byproduct of actually seeing what is in front of him. Chapter 40, Allow Older Women Their Magic. He pushes back on the cultural reflex to make older women invisible and names the depth they carry that a younger woman cannot. Letting that depth land rather than looking past it for a more conventional version of beauty is itself a practice in a man's attention. Deida is asking for a corrective to a cultural habit. The man who can see and receive what an older woman actually offers without filtering her through a comparison to a younger version is a man whose attention has matured along with his eyes. The reward is access to a quality of feminine presence the culture has trained him to overlook. The cost is letting go of an image of attraction that was always thinner than the reality. Chapter 41, Turn Your Lust into Gifts. The desire that surges through a man at the sight of a beautiful woman is energy. He can collapse into it, suppress it, or convert it into creative output, into gifts to the people and the work in front of him. Deida treats lust as fuel that can be metabolized. The man who learns to do that has access to a power source his peers are still trying to silence. The conversion is not metaphorical. It is a practical move the man can rehearse. The pull arrives. The man feels it fully. And instead of letting it leak out as fantasy or as suppressed shame, he routes it into the next concrete thing he is making. The same energy that would have been spent on chasing becomes the engine of the work. And the man who has rewired the circuit stops seeing his desire as a problem and starts seeing it as a resource. Chapter 42. Never allow your desire to become suppressed or depolarized. A man who flattens his attraction to feel safe with a partner kills the polarity that made the relationship work in the first place. Desire kept alive, not acted out, is the practice. The job is to feel the pull and stay loyal, not to numb the pull, so loyalty is easier. Deida is naming a quiet failure mode of long relationships. The man, trying to be a good partner, slowly dampens the part of himself that notices other women, and then notices that the same flattening has dampened the part of himself that notices his partner. The two are the same circuit. Suppress it for safety with the world, and it goes silent in the bedroom too. The discipline is to keep the desire alive, fully felt, and to keep it directed by choice, not by elimination. Chapter 40. Use her attractiveness as a slingshot through appearance. The beauty of any woman is a doorway to the larger feeling of beauty itself. Stay with the surface, and a man is a hungry consumer of images. Use the surface as a slingshot and the attraction moves him into something larger. The felt sense of beauty as a property of being, not a property of bodies. Deida is offering a contemplative move inside what looks like an erotic one. The woman is real, the attraction is real, and the practice is to let the surface initiate something deeper rather than terminate at itself. The man who masters this move stops being a tourist in beauty and starts being moved by it, and the relationship between him and the world he walks through changes in a way the consumer version of the same attraction never quite reaches. Chapter 44. Ejaculation should be converted or consciously chosen. Deida argues that the default habit of ejaculating every time is energetically draining and disconnected from intention. The practice is to make ejaculation a choice rather than an automatic conclusion. The shift is small in description and big in effect, because choice is the thing that turns sex from consumption into practice. He is not prescribing abstinence, and he is not condemning ejaculation. He is asking the man to pay attention to what he is doing with his own energy, and to stop running on a default that the body adopted without consent from the man's awareness. The man who has learned to choose has access to a different range of sexual experience, both for himself and for his partner, than the man who has not. Chapter 45. Breathe down the front. He writes that the principal bodily key to mastering the world and women is maintaining a full and open front of the body at all times. The method is full, relaxed breathing that draws energy down the front of the torso, rather than letting the breath lock high in the chest and the attention lock high in the head. The practice is simple. The effect on a man's presence is not. A man whose breath is shallow and whose chest is locked feels to the people around him like he is not fully in the room. His body has been telling them so all along. The repair is mechanical. Drop the breath, open the front, soften the held places, and the presence other people had been quietly missing returns. Deida treats this as a daily practice, not a one-time correction. Chapter 40. Ejaculate up the spine. Through breath, attention, and contraction of the pelvic floor near the genitals, the man learns to draw the energy of orgasm up the spine rather than out through ejaculation. Deida describes the result as an explosion of energy into the brain, from where it rains down through the body like an ambrosial bliss. The reader does not have to take the metaphysics on faith to take the underlying point, which is that sexual energy is a resource, and most men spend it without knowing they had a choice. Deida is offering a specific bodily technique, but the larger lesson is about ownership. A man who has done no work on his own energetic mechanics is at the mercy of patterns he did not choose. A man who has done even some of this work has access to a wider range of states and a steadier baseline outside the bedroom as well as inside it. Chapter 47. Take into account the primary asymmetry. Men and women are not running the same operating system. A man's primary search is freedom. A woman's primary search is love, and pretending the priorities are identical creates constant low-grade collision. Naming the asymmetry honestly is what lets two people stop punishing each other for not wanting the same thing in the same way at the same time. Deida is not saying men do not want love or that women do not want freedom. He is saying the primary axis differs, and the relationship works better when both partners can see that without making it a moral failure on either side. The man who expects his partner to organize her life around freedom the way he does will keep being disappointed. The woman who expects her partner to organize his life around love the way she does will keep being hurt. The asymmetry, named, becomes navigable terrain rather than a daily betrayal. Chapter 48. You are responsible for the growth in intimacy. Deida puts the responsibility on the man to set the trajectory of the relationship, including its spiritual depth, rather than waiting for the woman to lead. The relationship will rise to whatever ceiling the man holds for it. A passive man gets a passive relationship and then complains about the ceiling. He is not saying the woman has no agency in the depth of the partnership. He is saying the man does not get to outsource that work. If the man wants the relationship to keep evolving, the man has to keep raising the floor and inviting his partner upward and refusing to let the partnership coast. The relationships that drift into low-grade staleness drift there because the man stopped holding the ceiling high and started accepting whatever the path of least resistance was producing. Chapter 49 insists on practice and growth. An intimate relationship that is not actively a vehicle for growth becomes a comfort trap. The two people get good at avoiding each other's edges and call it peace. Deida says, demand more, both of yourself and of the partner, so the relationship keeps stretching both of you instead of slowly going to sleep. The demand is not aggression. It is the refusal to let the partnership become a place to hide. A relationship as practice is a relationship in which the difficult conversations get had, the avoidances get named, the edges get worked, and both people grow because of the partnership rather than in spite of it. Deida is clear that this is harder than the comfort version. The comfort version is more pleasant in any given week and produces, after a decade, two people who barely know each other anymore. Chapter 50. Restore your purpose in solitude and with other men. A man rebuilds his ground in two places, alone and in the company of trusted men who know his mission. The partner cannot do this work for him, and the bedroom alone cannot do it either. Solitude returns him to himself. Brotherhood reminds him who he is when he forgets. Both are non-negotiable, and a man who has neither will run his relationship dry trying to source from it what only those two settings can give. Deida is direct that the burden a man places on his partner when he has no other source of restoration is unfair to her and unsustainable for both. She cannot be his mother, his therapist, his men's group, and his partner all at once. The man who has done the solitude work and built the brotherhood walks into the relationship already full, and the relationship can then be the relationship, instead of an overloaded substitute for the inner work he was supposed to do alone. Chapter 51. Practice dissolving. The closing practice is to dissolve into the world, into the partner, into the moment, as the way a man stays in touch with the masculine pulled toward release and freedom. Holding tight is not the path. Letting go consciously is. A man who can dissolve into what is in front of him without bracing, without performing, has found the freedom he was always chasing and discovered it was available the whole time. The whole book has been about a man finding his ground, his purpose, his edge, his practice, his partner. The closing instruction is to also know how to let all of it go, so the ground he has built does not become another cage. The freedom the masculine has been hunting for is on the other side of the willingness to disappear into what is right in front of him fully. The thread running through every chapter is the same demand. Live at the edge, on purpose, with the heart open, in honest contact with both your own desire and the people in front of you. Deida does not flatter the reader, and he does not promise the work will be comfortable. What he offers is a frame for a life that belongs to the man living it, in which purpose comes first. Intimacy is practice rather than refuge, and presence is the one capacity worth building above all the others. The one thing to walk away with is the edge instruction. Find the real one, not the fake one, and lean just past it today, not next year, not when the conditions are right. Today. That single move repeated is the entire path, and the rest of the chapters are instructions for the man who has decided to actually start walking it.